Hey, Rainbow here, and it is that time again. It is time to test ride a Ducati. And today's feature motorcycle is the absolutely gorgeous Ducati Monster SP. This is the 2023, and I just want you to get a little look at this puppy. See how nice it looks. Beautiful styling on this. Love the tail on this thing. And look at this exhaust. So let's go ahead and talk about some specifications. Okay, so let's just walk in circles around this bike while I give you some specs. Again, this is the 2023 Ducati Monster SP. This is a very lightweight and compact motorcycle, and it is one of the best motorcycles you can get for sport riding at a Ducati lower end budget. And it's even difficult to say it that way, but it is the truth. This bike in the United States will set you back about 15,595 buckaroosies. It has a 937cc Testastretta. That's a V2. Now, what kind of power are you going to get out of this bike? Well, let me tell you, you're going to get 111 horsepower at 9,250 RPM and about 93 Newton meters of torque, and that's at 6,500 RPM. So this is a rather powerful bike. So this bike has a dry weight of about 166 kilograms, otherwise known as 366 pounds, and it has a wet weight of about 186 kilograms, otherwise known as about 410 pounds. Beautiful red seat, and that red seat is going to be about 840 millimeters. We'll talk about how it feels. It's narrow in the beginning, but it widens out for your tushy, or for those from Poland, dupa. And there is a kit for this that you can get a lower seat or a higher seat. Now, this bike has an all-in suspension front and rear. It is also fully adjustable. You can see what we're looking at here up top. And underneath, of course, you have that name brand recognized performance of Öhlins, fully adjustable on that rear monoshock. In typical Ducati fashion, you have dual Brembo brakes. The front is going to have 320 millimeters, and the rear Brembo has about a 245 millimeter disc single in the back. Now, hidden somewhere deep in this bike is a lithium-ion battery. That is what this SP comes with. And please let us not forget about this beautiful Tormignoni exhaust. You hear that? Tormignoni. This is a 6-speed gearbox, and if you're wondering what that is, everybody knows that is a Ducati quick shifter. So this does come with DQS, Ducati quick shifter, both up and down, and it also has a slipper clutch. Front wheel and tire standard 3.5 inch by 17, and that front tire is a 120/70 17. That is a Pirelli Diablo Rosso 4, Rosso 4. On the rear, you're looking at a 5.5 inch by 17 inch tire and a very stock standard 180/55/17. So overall, it's a pretty nice width for being such a small bike like this. It has a beautiful 4.3 inch color TFT display. This bike comes with 3 riding modes: sport, road, and wet, or rain, whatever you want to call it. But Ducati calls it sport, road, and wet. There are also 3 power modes that are adjustable inside that TFT. This does come with cornering ABS, Ducati traction control, and Ducati wheelie control. Now, all those specs are nice, but what's the most important thing, right? Of any time you get on a bike, how does it feel? And since I'm the average rider out there, I'm going to let you know what I think about this bike. This is my opinion, but let's take it for a spin and see how it handles and see how it feels. It's the feeling of the bike. How it feels to you is the most important thing. Let's take it for a spin. Ah, there we are. We're gonna have to get ready here. Got my boots, my gloves, my helmet, obviously. And what we need to do is take it for a spin. I will tell you that one of the things I really like about this bike is it reminds me of my, ready for this? Ducati Multistrada. The reason why it reminds me is because of the paint scheme. Really, when you look at this orange and red and this like burgundy color into the black, looks very much like the Ducati Multistrada. All we need is the number 1 coming down here, and that would be pretty awesome. So let's swing a leg over this puppy and see how it feels. Sound check. Beautiful. All right. Well, make sure the mirrors are good. Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you, now that I'm in the echo chamber, is that I am flat-footing this bike no problem at all. Now, I am 5 foot 11 and a half inches. What's that, about 170 centimeters or something like that? Somewhere around there, I'm not sure. And I have a 32-inch inseam, which is really the more important thing. And with a 32-inch inseam with this bike, I am easily flat footing with some bend in my knees. I will tell you that it is a slightly forward position, and I'm jammed with my crotch all the way up against the tank, so I can definitely see that there's a little bit of leaning forward on this bike. And let's take it for a spin. Okay, we are in sport mode. Brand new tires, brand new bike. Let's see how it feels. So I came over to this little spot in road mode, and you can really tell the difference in how this engine responds in sport mode. All right, third gear, easily into the 50-mile-an-hour range. But as usual, I have to take it easy on the bike because it's a brand new bike, and of course, it's not mine. Plus, the fact, one more major factor here, that the tires really are not scrubbed in at all, so I have to be a little on the cautious side. Definitely some good pickup on this bike. This is a fun bike. This is definitely a fun bike. It is very lightweight, and let's take it on the road. So the braking on this bike really feels good, especially since it's a very lightweight bike. It's about, like I said, a little over 400 pounds wet, and it has two, really big 320 millimeter discs run by two Brembos, so definitely feels good and really solid braking. For the safety features with the traction control, the wheelie control, it's I would say this is definitely a good starter bike for somebody, because it's not over the top with power yet, if it can be. But as usual, you could be saved potentially by the electronics. Always something that's important. Now, nimble, because it's such a small bike, it really does feel nimble. Of course, this bike is going to offer virtually no wind protection, although there is a little bit of a screen in the front. It probably helps a little bit over other similar bikes. But let's wait for this, and we'll take it on the highway and talk about the bike a little bit more. Okay, so the screen is easy to read. It's a very typical Ducati screen with the white background, very crisp, clear lettering in there for you. You could tell what mode you're in. You can talk about your RPM very easily. It gives the engine temperature, the time, your fuel, which is nice to have a fuel gauge. In this bike, of course, you have a fuel gauge in this Monster SP. Hey, while we're waiting for this light, I would again really like to thank Ian from Two Wheels World, Ducati Forza in Pompano Beach, just north of Fort Lauderdale, south of the Palm Beaches. And talk to Ian if you're thinking about getting a bike, you're in the area, you're near the area, you want a good deal. Talk to Ian, let him know that you know me, he likes that, and he will do his best. The nice thing about Ian is that he is an excellent motorcycle rider at all different levels. He races, he does a lot of stuff, so he really knows motorcycles, and he is honestly very honest, which is always appreciated. So I'd like to thank Ian for allowing me the opportunity to take these bikes out. Pretty good acceleration on this bike. I mean, it's a
a 937, it feels really good, and that's probably because it's so lightweight. It sounds good. It's the V2. So let's take this puppy on the highway and see how it feels for one exit. Alright, so as far as the mirrors are concerned, they're pretty good. I'm not thrilled with the positioning of them. They're not as good as the Multistrada, probably because they're narrower and they don't seem to have as much adjustment in them as I like. So I'm not thrilled with the mirrors. They look similar to the style of the Multistrada, similar in the shape, but for some reason they're very good. They're just, I guess I'm spoiled with what I have from the Multistrada. Okay, let's get on the highway. We'll check out acceleration, wind protection. Oh yeah, there's very little wind protection here, if you can't already hear it. Very little wind protection. A little bit of traffic because we're in snowbird season here in Florida. So, all right, 65 miles an hour, there's a decent amount of wind protection. It actually feels okay here. No complaints here at 65 miles an hour. I can do 65 miles an hour on this all day long because I'm not really feeling any wind here, like hardly any wind at all. Very stable, really like the feel, really feels good. You can definitely feel the gyroscopic effect on this bike because it's lightweight. You know, there's that whole balancing act between the weight of the bike and how gyroscopic it feels for pulling it, for example. And I know some of you are going to get pissy with me and going, you keep comparing it to the Ducati Multistrada. Well, that's the bike that I ride most of the time, and to be quite honest with you, even the KTM RC390 seems to have a bit of a better it seems to be a little bit smoother and a little more nimble, I guess is the best way to put it. This, you can really feel for some reason the unsprung weight in this bike. Maybe it's because it's such a short wheelbase. Don't know exactly what it is. It could be the wheels that they have on there. I'm not positive of that, but what I can tell you is if I do compare this like to the RC390, when it's two totally different bikes, but they're similar in size, I guess you can say, I do feel as though I'm a little more nimble with the RC390 and a little more nimble with the Ducati Multistrada. Again, two completely different bikes, so you can hammer away at me all you want. I'm just reporting how it feels in comparison to those two. Now, that doesn't take anything away from this bike, but again, I can't really push this too hard because I have brand new tires on a brand new bike, and it's obviously not worn in yet. Would I love to take this bike to a track? Oh, you bet. I think this would be an awesome bike for the track. I think this would be a fantastic track bike for sure, especially with that acceleration. Oh yeah, let's do some emergency braking, and it feels pretty good. All right. Wow, brakes felt good, like really good, really stable. I didn't feel the ABS kick in, but if it did, it was extremely subtle, and I did hammer on that front brake a little hard and a little bit of the rear brake at the same time. I like to use both for emergency braking. Now, the overall feel on this bike, one of the most descriptive words that I use on a regular basis, it's the word fun. This is definitely a fun bike. I think this is a great commuting bike. Is this bike a little bit warm? Yeah, it's a Ducati. Ducatis are known to run warm. They're known to be a little hot, so that's expected on a bike like this. You're going to have a little bit of heat, and I can certainly feel it building up in my crotch area because I'm not on the highway. I'm in local traffic, and when you're in traffic and stop and go like this, you are going to have heat buildup in any bike, particularly in Ducatis. Now, is it unbearable? No. Is it noticeable? Yeah, right now it's noticeable, but it's going to go away as soon as I start riding. It's not like you're on the highway and you're going to have, you know, hot crotch syndrome. So it's as expected, and it's sometimes one of the trade-offs that you have when you have a bike such as a Ducati brand. They're known to run hotter than other bikes. This is expected. Okay, let's do this. Okay, let's go feel out the railroad tracks. See how it feels on the railroad tracks. Okay, let's go for the railroad tracks. How do we feel at about, let's call it 50-55 miles an hour on railroad tracks? Ah, not too bad. Pretty darn smooth. One of the very, very unremarkable. I think that this Olin suspension really does a good job. And I don't even have this bike set up for me at all. This bike is basically right out of the showroom, not set up for me in the least amount. And that felt pretty good. I know if I would have went over that on my Indian Scout bobber, I would have been jarring my spine into place for sure. But feels really good. All right, once we make this light, we're going to do turnaround, and we're going to work on our acceleration. See how this bike feels for acceleration. Desmo Dici, I love you. That felt pretty darn good. No complaints there. A lot of really good acceleration on this bike. That really felt spectacular. Man, this bike has some balls to it. Definitely will get you out of the corners if you take this to the track. I would absolutely love to take this and run this as a track bike. I think this would be a great track bike, especially with all the electronics to kind of back you up if your skill level doesn't quite always match up. Of course, going too hot into any corner is always going to be a problem, no matter what kind of electronics you have. But I have to tell you, rather impressed. I am absolutely rather impressed with this. Now, fair warning here. I am taking this bike out for basically 20 or 30 minutes to run, and not on a whole bunch of different type of roads. And what I do have to tell you is that, you know, you really know a bike after you spend a good amount of time on it, several hours, maybe 100 hours. I don't really care about miles, because if you go on the highway for 100 miles and all you're doing is sitting there, you're not really testing out the bike. So it's about taking the bike out on different kind of roads in different scenarios, different weather, to kind of see how it, you know, how it handles for you and how it feels. So finally, the last thing I want to talk about is the feel of this bike. Yes, it's a slightly forward position. The seat feels comfortable. With the 32-inch inseam, it's very comfortable at stoplights. This bike, to me, is a lot of fun. Like I've used that descriptive word before. A lot of fun. It's exciting to ride. It has a lot of balls, and I would seriously consider taking this bike and turn it into a track bike. Absolutely. So the overall feel is that the bike feels good, and like I said, that's the most important thing. The bike feels good. You can get on a bike that has the best specs in the world, but if it doesn't feel good to you, then what's the point? Really, what is the point? You have to get a bike that when you sit on it, you're comfortable, you're in a position that you like. The bike responds the way you want it to, whether it's acceleration, deceleration, engine braking, or regular everyday braking. That's what you want. You want a bike that when you get on it, you eventually know you're going to feel like one with the bike. And I believe that this bike is going to be super easy to get used to. I think this bike, it actually is. I don't think it is. Easy to get that front wheel up. Of course, it has Ducati traction and wheelie control, so I'm not going to get it crazy with it. But as you can see, I'm not popping the clutch or anything to get this up like some of the bikes. This bike, especially in sport mode, it has enough oomph, you know, to give you some get up and go here. I really cannot complain about this bike at all. I really like it. Again, the unsprung weight thing is what I did bring up. That was Ian. So as usual, once again, a big thank you to Ian from Two Wheels World, otherwise known as Ducati Forza, for allowing me. This is where they're located, right here off the highway. And speak of the devil, that tall skinny thing over there is Ian. That's who was letting me do all this. This is a gorgeous bike, really like it. I'm going to take it around back for him, really love it. And this is a winner for me. I think this is totally a winner of a bike. I really like this bike. I've said that long enough. Anyway, let's take it around back. Oh, it just looks great.